Chris, Grazia magazine has struck again.
It has, hasn't it? Another his and hers interview.
Well, let's remind us of the last time Grazia magazine struck, and this was the Mr. and Mrs. interview with Rishi Sunak and his wife, where he said some great things for the ages.
Oh, that's me.
Definitely Rishi, but I am A for enthusiasm, so I see something.
Yeah, but then it requires redoing after you've been very enthusiastic.
But I still load it, and then Rishi comes and rearranges
it. Creates more work.
It rearranges it. Yes. It's a team effort.
And then more goes in as a result.
Team effort.
And did he not say he nipped upstairs like midway through the working day in Downing Street to make his bed if he thought it wasn't made?
Yes, which prompted a lot of comment on this podcast and many others. Anyway, Grazia has struck again, this time at home with the Starmers. Now, unfortunately, there isn't a video of it yet. So what we've had to do is get John Coleshaw from Dead Ringers to pretend to be Keir Starmer to then read out the choicest bit. And this is how it sounds.
I feel I show my human side all the time. Do we all have to stack the dishwasher? Yes, we do. Do we all have to change the bedding? Yes, we do. But I would never go up and check or criticise my wife when she does it. In fact, as my dear friend Ed Miliband would say, hell yeah.
Well done, John. That's terrific, isn't it? It sounded like a political speech, didn't it? Talking about the dishwasher.
Well, because that's how we see Keir Starmer, though, isn't it? Isn't it interesting? That's how John doesn't see Keir Starmer as like just having a chat. Everything ends up being like Keir Starmer performing, which is quite revealing, I think. Right, let's see what else we can reveal on this episode of Newscast.
Newscast from the BBC.
Hello, it's Adam in the studio.
And it's Chris in the studio.
Now, basically, Chris, our whole careers as political journalists, there has been bubbling away this campaign led by the Waspi Women. So Women Against State Pension Inequality. And this is women who were born in the 50s, but saw their state pension age increase. So it was equalised with men. And lots of them feel like they lost out as a result for various reasons.
Yeah, and the whole thing strikes a chord with a couple of other issues that have made news in just the last couple of months, and they fall into a category that you could sort of loosely describe as generation-long state failure, which then comes with a massive bill for whichever government decides it's going to try and deal with it. So we've seen the row about the post office, we've seen the row about infected blood, and now we see this, with a report today saying that this generation of women were never told properly what was going on, which left many finding out very late in the day that suddenly they wouldn't be getting the state pension they thought they were going to be getting until much further down the track. And yet what we've had today in response to this report from an ombudsman who cannot mandate anything is the Conservatives in government and Labour soon hoping to be in government, both committing to diddly squat. They are not saying that they will compensate. Why? Well, that's for them to answer, but the context is one where the bill would be huge and the public finances are squeezed.
Well, we can chew over this now because we're joined by Angela Madden, who's one of the leaders of the campaign. Hello.
Hello.
Has this been a big day for you?
Big day, yes. We've been waiting for it for a long time.
Okay. And Lily Russell-Jones is the senior money reporter at the Times newspaper. Hi, Lily.
Hello.
Are we talking about big numbers here? Give us some numbers.
So there are about 3.6 million women born in the 1950s who are thought to be in the first kind of cohort affected by the changes to state pension age. The government the Ombudsman said that the cost of compensating all those women would be somewhere between 3.5 billion and 10 billion pounds. So that would certainly be quite a big compensation scheme. I mean, it could be bigger depending on how much compensation it's decided that the women are owed, or there might be nothing at all.
And yeah, Angela, what's your reaction to what this ombudsman found out? I mean, I have to admit, I don't really know what the parliamentary ombudsman, what they actually do all the time, but they are a legitimate body and they have produced a huge, big report today that is the product of 5 years of investigation.
5 years of investigation. They took evidence from Waspi Women, from the Department of Work and Pensions, from other campaign groups as well as the Waspi campaign, and from the all-party parliamentary group in Parliament working on behalf of women born in the 1950s. 3 years ago, they found that the Department of Work and Pensions got it wrong. They should have communicated with us quicker than they did, and that was agreed to be maladministration.
And it was as simple as sending a letter to your home to
It
say
was
you're affected by this change.
yes, it was that simple. They didn't do that for 14 years following the 1995 Pension Act. So we could have had 14 years more notice of the change to our state pension age than we actually received.
What would you have done differently? Not to pry
Um,
into your finances, but
I wouldn't have given up a full-time job to care for my then ailing mother. That would have been the main thing that I would have done differently. I perhaps would have shared that caring responsibility and worked part-time. But I wasn't given that choice. The choice was taken away from me because I knew I could manage until my 60th birthday. But what I didn't know until 2012 was I wasn't going to get my pension on my 60th birthday in 2014. It wasn't going to arrive until March 2020.
I wonder, Angela, if today is a day that leaves you with hope and a spring in your step, or a sense of hopelessness, because we've got an ombudsman who has been very clear in her conclusions, and yet you have the party of government and the party that soon aspires to be in government promising nothing.
Exactly. But it is, we do have hope. We have hundreds of supportive MPs in Parliament. And what we are now hoping for is a debate in Parliament. So Parliament actually makes the decision about what should happen to Waspi Women, not just the government of the day.
But in the end, you've got to persuade a government, haven't you?
Yes, yes. And I think Parliament can do that through debate. The Department of Work and Pensions got this wrong. The government know they got it wrong. They have changed the law so that there will never again be a 6-year pension hike put on 1 decade. There is only going to be ever a single year per decade increase to the state
stable
pension
door, though, I
age.
guess, isn't it? Closing with the old horse running
Yes,
round.
that's right. So they've closed the stable door for future generations, and I think that's good. But they still have to resolve this issue.
And Lily, have you been speaking to lots of other people who've been going through what Angela did?
Yes, I think today it's been mixed reactions really from Waspi women who are affected by the changes, because I think some feel that, they're still waiting for a resolution to what has been sort of a decades-long struggle. I've spoken to one woman who gave up a job because she thought her state pension age was 63, but actually it was 66, and she gave up work similarly to you to look after an elderly parent, and she reduced her working hours, and it meant that while she waited for the state pension, she thinks that she spent about £40,000 from her pension savings filling in that gap. And I think that she's really characteristic of a lot of women's experiences who say that they weren't told and suffered financial hardship as a result.
I wonder how, Angela, on the kind of deserving-ometer, if you like, of compensation, when you have, as I was mentioning, the sub-postmasters seeking compensation, and there's a process ongoing with that. There's the infected blood scandal. You and your campaign are seeking compensation that would add up to the billions, maybe the tens of billions, at a time when the public finances are squeezed and where political parties are blinking at the prospect of handing over money. How do you get to that next stage of convincing them? Because they're not convinced yet.
Not all of them, but several of them actually are. I mean, before Jeremy Hunt took 2p off national insurance in the recent budget, there was a surplus of 79 billion in the National Insurance Fund. Tomorrow, they could use 36 billion of that surplus to repay Waspi Women and close this down forever.
It's a vast amount of money, though, isn't it?
It is a vast amount of money, but they've also saved a vast amount of money by increasing the state pension age. They've saved 181 billion. So they've used us as a cash cow for long enough. And I think because they chose not to give us the opportunity to manage our own finances by not telling us, they have a responsibility to compensate us for that. And they need to consider it. They need to discuss it. They need to think about what happens to trust between society and government if they don't recompense us properly. Because all our sons and daughters are watching this. All the NI payers of today are thinking, well, will there ever be a state pension for me? Why am I even paying this tax? What am I going to get out of it?
And they might have to pay a bit more tax to pay your compensation.
I'm sure they do. I'm also a taxpayer. You know, I have rights as well. And I would prefer my tax to be paying my compensation than perhaps some of the other things the government choose to do with that fund.
Lily, I just wonder if the way this goes, if Labour and the Tories are kind of on the same page, just sort of hoping it goes away and not making any commitments, actually is the real division that might emerge between older voters and younger voters about who deserves to be compensated here and who should be paying for it. Because I just think a young person who can't get on the housing ladder thinking, oh, I'm going to have to pay a bit more tax to compensate some people who maybe have quite nice houses already.
Yeah,
To caricature it.
I mean, I think that there's a legitimate argument here, which I hope most people would be sympathetic with, from the women who say they really didn't know. I think there's a question of whether it's all women who were born in the 1950s who get compensation, or whether it's restricted to a smaller group who can prove that because they weren't informed with good notice, they therefore took decisions which were detrimental to them financially. So I think there probably is a debate to be had, which we might see in Parliament, between, you know, those who think, yes, this should be like a flat rate of compensation for everyone. Only certain people should get it. We could see quite a restrictive scheme that only allows certain people to be compensated. And then there's also this question of how much they should get. In terms of intergenerational inequality,
I'm not trying to create a fight between you two,
Yeah.
just to be clear.
I think that, you know, you want to see politicians correct injustices and correct wrongs that government departments have made. And if the Ombudsman says that an injustice has occurred, then I think that that's quite compelling evidence that these people are owed compensation.
I don't think there is an intergenerational divide on this. We talk to and listen to an awful lot of people, and we do have one slogan, and that is hashtag everyone knows a Waspi woman. You know, I have nieces, nephews, they're all paying tax. They all know what we've been through, and they sympathise. And they, if they were asked what the government would prefer to do with their taxes, would say, well, get this sorted out. We are all absolutely appalled by the neglect of this government. You mentioned the Horizon issues. You mentioned the contaminated blood issues. These are all mistakes the governments have made and keeps on making. Now, when is this going to end?
And that's such an interesting kind of context in all of this, isn't it? And illustrates, just as your day has, the kind of stamina that you guys as campaigners need to try and make the argument. Because I saw you, about 3 hours ago? You'd already done, what was it, 26 interviews at that point?
Yeah.
Now we're a few hours. How many interviews have you done today?
I think 42.
42!
Well, Angela, thanks for coming in.
You're very welcome. Thank you for giving us the opportunity.
And Lily, great to see you too.
Thanks for having us.
Now, Chris, I've actually been off for a couple of days. And would you like to know the political story that caught my attention when I wasn't really paying attention to the news properly?
Puncture through.
My leisurely bubble. Yeah.
Go on.
Emmanuel Macron, French president, boxing and being photographed doing it.
It is quite the picture, isn't
It's
it?
quite hunky.
Well, yeah, he's got his muscles. His
His biceps, yeah, he's got
really quite
biceps.
something. What is he? Late 40s, 47, 48, something like that, I think.
He looks good. And things we on this side of the channel can't really compete with that, can we?
We don't see. I'm trying to think. There isn't an equivalent Rishi Sunak, because I think he's got a treadmill in Downing Street. I think he does a bit of sort of, running on the treadmill.
I mean, he does like to be pictured being a bit sporty. I saw some like social media ads he did the other day. They were on the football pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Talking of football, Keir Starmer always going on about going to Arsenal.
And he's a proper kind of football fan. And
Yeah,
does his five
it is
aside.
genuine. It is genuine.
Yeah. It does. He plays five-a-side once a week, I think.
I mean, I think the one though that lodges in my mind is that famous video of Boris Johnson as Mayor of London on a visit to Japan, where he just like demolishes an 8-year-old child in a rugby match.
Rugby with a load of poor children who get sort of smashed out of the way.
It's almost like it reveals an aspect of his character that would become quite important later on.
Otherwise been, hiding.
Anyway, this is a great excuse for newscasters to tell us their mad moments where we want to know, have you ever encountered a politician playing sport? Have you done mahjong with Theresa May? Have you done, I'd have to think of alliterative sports that matches ball games with dead balls. I don't know. Anyway, let us know.
Lacrosse with Lammy.
Exactly. Newscast at bbc.co.uk.
Hockey with Hunt.
Hockey with, there you go. I mean, they're spewing out of you now. Or you can download Discord, which is the app that you can use to talk to other newscasters and talk to us about what's on the podcast. Anyway, what we're going to talk about now, I had a very pleasant afternoon.
Badminton with Barclay.
Okay, email at newscast@bbc.co.uk. So Netflix sent me a link to a preview of their new big drama, Scoop, which is the story of how Newsnight got the interview with Prince Andrew.
So you can't yet watch it as a subscriber, but you have seen it.
I'm basically just showing off. And I've only watched the first 47 minutes. But luckily, I was going to say the star of Scoop, but Billie Piper plays her. It's our former colleague, Newsnight producer, Sam McAllister. Hello.
It's so meta, guys, honestly.
I know.
I'm confused at this stage.
So yeah, we're in a studio talking to you as our former colleague who's now an author but is being played by Billie Piper in the drama, which also stars Gillian Anderson playing Emily Maitlis, who sometimes used to appear on this podcast but is now a rival podcaster.
Well, in that case.
I mean, it's a lot of water under the bridge. No, but welcome. I mean, I was going to say, it was super weird for me seeing like the Netflix representation of My Office. It must have been even weirder for you seeing the Netflix representation of your entire life.
It's so next level weird and amazing and surreal and bonkers. I mean, I've run out of words, but you know, to see fictional me arriving at real BBC to go into fictional BBC, where fictional Emily Maitlis and my fictional former boss Esme Wren, played by Romola Garai, are all hanging out together.
Yes.
I mean, it's next level. Need a lie down.
It is mad seeing these famous actors playing people that you used to chat to in the lift. Like it is very strange. I'm not totally convinced by Gillian Anderson's Emily Maitlis voice though. She's got her body language like totally down to a T. The voice I thought was maybe a little bit too Margaret Thatcher in The Crown.
I'm not going to be giving that feedback. I feel that
yeah,
Gillian.
Please don't.
Do you want? I'm not going to text Gillian right now and say you said that because I don't want her to come here and sort you out. You know, and frankly, I think it's sensational. So you know.
Oh no, it's a great performance.
We'll just leave that there.
And it actually makes you realise
we used to be friends. Like, I can't believe you came at Gillian Anderson.
I wish we could just delete that and rewind. Don't put this bit in the big budget film version of this episode.
I'm curious as to how it works when. So they are dramatising this thing, this interview, a fair amount of which is obviously out there in public, i.e. the interview, and involves Prince Andrew and Emily Maitlis, who are both public figures. You were the absolute centrepiece of this whole thing, but not a public figure at that time. And so how Billie Piper goes about playing you and trying to represent you in a way that is authentic or not. Have you guys met? Did she get a sense of how you speak, how your demeanour is, how your body language is, or not?
Well, the poor woman, Chris, you know, in answer to both of your questions, the first part is that, to be frank with you, we've all seen the interview, or most people have. That's 5% of this. The other 95% is the story of the Newsnight team, my role in that team, the other people who worked up, how the interview came about. Because with respect to you guys, who obviously are highfalutin presenters, without the people that do the booking, I was a booker, you've got no one here, right? Someone booked me. So there is no content without the people behind the scenes.
Sure.
So this is, if you like, that relatable part of telling the story of how the 5% came about with the 95. Now, in answer to your Billie question, this is next level bonkers. Billie spent a lot of time with me. So the poor thing, she learned how to do my walk, which, just so you know, is very bouncy.
Yes.
Involves a lot of curls going up and down. She had to wear my clothes, which, just so you know, are basically black. Every day on rotation, I do wash them, to be clear. And she learnt my voice, my modulation. And
how did she do that? Just followed you around?
Yeah, we spent time together. So we had some time together. She met my son, who's also played in the movie by a lovely boy called Zach Colton. We call him Flucus, fake Lucas, because my kid is called Lucas. And Billie spent lots of time with me and she asked me lots of questions. The level of detail is meticulous.
Let me ask the sceptical question for a newscaster who you know was toying with her to watch this drama, which is, how do you make exciting telly out of a process that involves a super booker doing lots of things, lots of phone calls and all the rest of it to make an interview happen, and then preparing for an interview that lots of people will have seen?
I think the answer to that is that basically that is where the magic happens, right? Everyone thinks the magic is the interview, but the truth is it took a year of my life. There were numerous meetings, which you see in the film. There are numerous problems that we had to overcome. There are issues and questions. And effectively, if you like, you don't have the whole story. In our age of truth, which I know you both really care about, finding out how it happened is, in a sense, a big part of the story. So I think, in a sense, if you are the type of person who's curious about how these things happen, it's great for you. If you like to learn more about how things happen, it's great for you. And if you like a scrappy underdog who, is a single mum, working part-time in a job she loved, but grafting herself, into kind of like oblivion, traveling on the bus, having a kebab, never thinking that this interview would happen, then you see my personal story as well. So I think there's something for everyone, even if you've seen the interview.
Well, let's see a bit of the film now. So this is you and your colleagues, including Emily, well, Billy as you, going to Buckingham Palace to sort of, this isn't quite sealing the deal. This is just pre-sealing the deal, but this is how it sounds.
If I do an interview, the question is, why you?
With respect, you know how people see you.
Spell it out.
Randy, Andy.
With respect.
Did that happen?
You've met me, you know the answer to that. It did happen. There's a point in a negotiation, and I'm not very BBC, I don't mean that pejoratively towards anybody, but I am quite bold. That's how I close deals. And when we were in that final negotiation, face to face with Prince Andrew, there's a point at which you feel we have a connection. He was clearly connected with the arguments that we were making in that room. Emily was there. Stuart McLean, who used to be the editor, was there. And there's a point at which you're like, it's all or nothing. And my version of all or nothing is just to tell the truth. And the truth is the nation perceived him as guilty because Randy Andy, Air Mars Andy, girls, islands, rich people, this is his product. And so I said that to him directly, and it could have gone horribly wrong, but as we know, it didn't. And that boldness, I think, is really part of my story, that I will, at all costs, tell the truth for better.
And is that the moment that the deal was sealed? That's the meeting?
That was the meeting at which, after they decided, the next day, they decided that they were going to do it. That's right.
And how big a gap was there then between that point and actually doing the interview? Because I guess with an interview like this, like so many, but particularly an interview like this, it's not happening until you're actually in the room and the cameras are rolling.
Oh, it's not happening until it broadcasts, in my view. This was just so precarious. So with the timeline, I'm so sorry, it sounds a bit like a Craig David song. The timeline was we did the final meeting on Monday. They said yes on Tuesday. They wanted to do it on Wednesday, but they agreed to Thursday. The first tweet went out on Friday. The world went mad, and that was quite a bland tweet about the content. And my editor very kindly mentioned my role in securing the interview, Esme Wren, which was very kind of her. And then on Saturday, the interview landed. So just a very small period of time.
And we should say that Prince Andrew continues to deny all the allegations that
100%.
are made, and that he's guilty of just being friends and being loyal to Jeffrey Epstein without knowing what Jeffrey Epstein was actually doing. Is it okay to watch and enjoy a drama that only exists because a guy was a paedophile?
I think, I understand that as a question, and it's obviously something, we all think about. Ultimately, this is, in a sense, a complementary item to the incredible work that the lawyers and the young women who made these allegations, these appalling and terrible allegations, made. And this piece of journalism was separate to that. I didn't work in that world. I wasn't working with them. I don't know them personally. What we were doing is the same as you guys do every day, try to bring light and truth to important issues. And this could not have been a more important issue. So the outcome of this obviously was, although he obviously strenuously denies the allegations, that there were outcomes. And that is journalism at its best. No, we weren't directly affected by this. The crimes alleged are appalling, but the outcome was, useful and helpful to the world and to those individual brave women who brought the claims against Prince Andrew and against others.
My favorite bit at the start is, and most people will not even notice this bit because it's not very dramatic, is when you're having the team meeting about what to put in the program that night and there's no big stories and someone goes, oh, should we just do Brexit again? Because of course it's around about 2017, 2018. I was like, oh yes, I remember it well. Was there ever a big bid, as we call them in the trade, that you missed out on, that you didn't get, that you still kick yourself?
Mate, my life was 99% rejection. This is the one time that it went right. I mean, every day I was rejected. We were the last in the queue, on the cost-benefit analysis, risking coming on with the incredible Emily Maitlis or the incredible Jeremy Paxman. It's not really great on the cost-benefit analysis. So my life was relentless rejection. So, yeah, I've been knocked back a million times.
And also you couldn't sign up to doing a soft interview, or we won't mention that subject. That's just not how it works.
100%. So
can't do a deal.
You don't pay any money. You don't do deals. You don't do red lines. You won't tell them what the questions are. There's literally nothing in it for them in a sense, other than obviously, the important fact of telling the truth and engaging with journalism. But it was always an uphill struggle. So every time I got a piece of content in a bun fight with my other dear BBC colleagues, particularly the Today programme, bun fight.
Yeah.
A strange way that the BBC works. We're fighting with everyone and with one another. But every time I got content, it would be a massive, massive victory because we were the last in the queue. And this was, the exception to that rule.
I wonder how you wrestle with the sheer scale of that interview and the extent to which it becomes this dominating feature of your biography, if you like. And that's brilliant because it's been hailed so widely and here it is being dramatised. But how you, if you want to, sort of move on from it and be defined by other stuff that you might be working on now versus that.
Well, look, I'm really the luckiest woman alive, to have this opportunity. Nobody writes a book who's a nobody like I am, and gets a Channel 4 documentary, which I did as well, and a Netflix deal. This is 1 in a billion, once in a lifetime. Separately, I do have another life. I do apologise. And in that life, I do things like I'm a visiting senior fellow at the London School of Economics, teaching negotiation. And I also do speaking. So I speak at corporates about my experiences, did a TEDx talk, that kind of thing. Still bringing up my son. So, there's lots of other projects in the ether I can't really talk about, but I do lead, in a sense, that double life. The Prince Andrew life, if you like, and then the other life, which I'm very lucky to have as well.
Is it true that Emily used to take her dog into the office and the studio because her whippet appears in the film at work a lot?
Moody, the sensational whippet, which is absolutely beautiful. It's been in Tatler. I mean, it's more famous than any of us, that dog. It's a gorgeous dog. And sometimes it was in the Newsnight office. Yes, indeed.
Wow.
And we were pleased to see it. What a gorgeous dog.
Do you have any? I don't know if you've got any pets.
I haven't got any pets, but I did meet a newscaster this week who is an assiduous viewer in particular of the television version of Newscast on a Thursday night. I noticed over our shoulder in this radio studio some cords hanging on the wall behind us, and I was asked if they were dog leads for your dog and mine. They're actually electrical cables with a bit of fur upon them, but it's suffice to say proof that,
Eagle-eyed viewers.
Exactly.
I'm so impressed by that.
Exactly
Your
that.
viewers are really impressive.
Right.
Yes.
So had Emily been here herself, Moody, it was Moody, wasn't
Moody.
it? Moody would have been suitably restrained,
Yeah.
albeit with an electric cable, which probably is not a good idea.
Sam, would you like to do the obligatory plug for your work?
So the Netflix movie is out on April the 5th. And I hope you enjoy it. And obviously, it's not an obligation to watch, but if you do, I hope you enjoy it. And please watch the rest.
Of course I will. Of course I will. Sam, thanks for coming in.
Pleasure.
And Chris, good to catch up with you.
And you?
And thank you very much for listening to another episode of Newscast. Remember, if you've ever played sport with a politician, what was it you said? Hurling with Hunt?
Yes. Hockey with Hunt, I think it was.
Yeah,
yes.
If that's what you've done, then let us know. Newscast@bbc.co.uk. And there'll be another episode along very soon. Bye.
I'm trying to think of one last one, but I can't. Bye-bye.
Swimming with Sunak.
That's good.
Fencing with
Farage.
Farage.
You're welcome.
I think we'll call it a day at that.
Bye.
Newscast.
Newscast from the BBC.